Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast, Inspiring Educators. And we have an inspirational educator, Meghna Musunuri, with us today. And, the more I was trying to get to know her right before recording the podcast, the more I got inspired. Because when I just met her, I thought she is the founder and chairperson of Fountainhead Global Schools in Hyderabad. But then she also mentioned about her not-for-profit initiatives. And there's an initiative called Save Water and Nature, short form SWAN, which was set up so that students could learn about sustainability and how, nature can be protected and how all of that can be used to impact learning outcomes. And I was blown away with the example that she gave. And then she said, well, you know what? I also do other things so that I can really set an example for the world. And that's why she has another initiative, which is called My Edu Guru. And she's been helping students to go to different parts of the world to pursue their dreams of, universities and higher education and so much more. But I'll not keep you away from her. What I'll do is I'll directly call her to introduce herself, give us a small snippet of her journey, and then we'll continue talking to her. Meghna, welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
So Meghna, first of all, I'd request you to share, something about yourself. Maybe how did you get into education? Where did you grow up? And then we build the journey around that. Please.
Sure. So thanks for that lovely introduction about me. So coming to, I'm born and brought up in India, definitely, but I started my journey into teaching in London because as every married person, I also accompanied my husband to London, and but I was always worried about what if the children arrive, what do I do with them? I had no idea because our regular education, did it help me find a job and all of that to an extent? Yes, but did it help me become a confident mother? Not a chance. So I had to equip myself with child psychology classes, and and as we all know, just going through a curriculum is so different to actually handling children and all of that. So to learn more, I was shadowing other teachers, and I started my career there as a teacher. And from then onwards, no looking back, it's been 22 years that I've been part of teaching line, and I learn a lot on a day-to-day basis. And and whatever I learn, I usually share with everyone. So from London, after my, I was more confident in how to handle children is when I planned my daughters. And once they were born, I really wanted to return back to India, because whatever I learned as a teacher and the education system that I was exposed to, I really wanted to add some more of it and bring that kind of, freedom in learning to India. So we moved back to India, and we sold our house in London so that I can start a school in India.
Wow.
So, and it helped, initially financially, it helped in a big way, I should say, though. But most of my first family lives again in another country. So it was quite challenging to actually start your entrepreneurial journey in India when you don't have your first family around. So that was the only issue initially I had. But then later on, like any new school, we started it as a kindergarten school actually, and my plan was to actually only have that kindergarten. But then parents were kind of happy with whatever the children learned during their time with us. So this actually helped us grow eventually, and it's been like 13 years, and just last year is the first time where our 12th class students passed out of the school.
Wow.
So that's how Fountainhead happened. And every year what I do is I take a challenge and I try and deliver that. So to set an example for not just for my students, but also for my colleagues, my teachers, the team that is around me. So I try and learn new things. That way it is benefiting both ways. Like, one, I can be a little creative in my day-to-day activities with the students, and also there's a huge learning in anything that we wanted to try, right, for the first time, and let's see how this is helping children and all of that. So so far there are only aha moments year on year, and very happy, and the amount of the content feeling that I have as a teacher is unparalleled, I should say.
Amazing. So how long has it been in India now? When was the first kindergarten that you started?
So I moved back to India and started a kindergarten in 2009 actually.
2009.
So, and
14 years
then. Yeah, the school started in 2010. So
within the first year of setting up the kindergarten, you moved on to the school as well then?
No, it was initially the kindergarten, like just the kindergarten. But then, we had to move on to a campus setting and all of that for the kindergarten in this area. And then that is when parents were like, we are not taking our children out. We're sure that, you will teach them what they have to learn even after the kindergarten as well. So I had no other choice but to, extend it. And every year it was like, only this time I'm extending. I think next year you have to look for other schools. and it never happened, and it continues so on until now. And I, in a way, I feel really happy because I think ours is the only school which runs without, we don't have an advertising, vertical in our school at all. No advertising, zero advertising. You don't see our boards, hoardings anywhere, because this only happens for well-established schools which are already there from, say about 20 years, 30 years back. Yes, this used to happen. But 13 years back, that was not the norm. So, it was always word of mouth. Whenever the parent is happy, they started spreading the word, and we now exist from last 13 years in Hyderabad. But it is not just the for me, definitely education is for me, it goes beyond academics. So those experiments that I love doing with children, inviting people from across the world, interacting with them, learning. I also learn in the process, and the amount of learning that happens that excites children is what keeps me going. So yeah.
Beautiful. No, that sounds so lovely, Meghna. Tell me something. So when you came back from the UK and you set up your first institution, and I'm sure at that time you would have so many ideas, so much passion, because what you had learned outside you wanted to bring back home, and you might have wanted to kind of build those systems that people would have not experienced, in this at least the neighborhood before.
Right.
And I'm sure you would have delivered that, because I can actually, feel the passion through the screen. The bigger challenge would have been that how do you really transmit the same passion from yourself to the team members who you have to bring in? Because running a small group of students with around 100 students, you're taking care of them directly, overlooking everything is much easier than actually taking that passion and now having so many team members delivering that from K to 12, different HODs, multiple layers. How did you handle that? I'm sure everybody wants to know about that.
Oh yeah, it itself is a journey, I should say, because usually what happens is when change is something which is inevitable, right? Yeah. But how many of us are open to this change is a big question, right? Because we love our comfort zones. We love to be part of that what we have learned last year is what we wanted to repeat and do it in a better way and all of that. Yeah. Usually what happens in a teaching environment is once the teacher feels that this worked with certain students, they wanted to repeat again, and that is what has been happening for a really long time. Yeah. So I initially whenever someone would join us, I would ask them how comfortable they are with technology and things like that. Then the minute they say, because I don't want my teachers to come and think that like, oh, whatever I learned, I'm going to deliver here. I always wanted to, I make them feel that, oh, this is something that I'm not so, experienced. So that is certain, that is something that I wanted to make sure, like, give them that feeling that I can learn little more here, and in Fountainhead, like, that is something that I wanted to, bring that kind of enthusiasm into people. So this is something I would ask them, how good are you with virtual reality? Or what do you think about augmented reality? Have you ever tried, certain things? Usually in a teaching environment, which they must have not tried.
Right.
And then the minute they say, oh, I haven't done this before, or I haven't done this. So I would ask, like, how open are you for learning? Because first quality as a teacher, we need to be open for learning. So that is when we can expect the child to learn as well. Like, when you have the enthusiasm, then you can actually pass it on to the student as well.
Absolutely.
So this is one thing that I would ask them and make them inquisitive about things, and hence motivation. So I would take first session with the students and show them that this is possible, because most of the time teachers would fear, because there is so much common things between mothers and teachers. I'll tell you why. Because I've been a mother and I've been a teacher as well, right? So what I've observed is we always strive for perfection. As a teacher, we do the same, and as a mother, we do the same.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter the gender, even in teaching line. Even the male teachers also wanted their class to be perfect. Yeah. So they have this fear of failing if that class isn't perfect.
Right.
So when you set an example and showcase, because today, with the artificial intelligence and with the chat GPTs and all these things creating such buzz, the knowledge that the teacher has is definitely limited compared to any of these, platforms up there. But how do you help the student to get that right information, and how do you steer them in a certain way so that, they use this information and be able to solve something is exciting in the entire process. So I take that first session with the children, and I ask my teachers to be, spectators, to see how it is going. And I ask them, I take their feedback. What is that you think that I could have improved in this area? Because I always try and set an example saying that, and I don't know it all. I'm only doing this as an experiment. Let's see how it's going to, come up. And these are certain few things that I was doing, and it worked so far. And whenever these teachers are empowered with all this technology and all of that, that keeps them going actually.
No, I think I found something amazing while you were sharing that thought. Right. So you said that you always look for people who have curiosity, people who want to learn, right? And that would actually keep them hungry, and that would keep them wanting to grow, and hence they would want to come and do new things with you for the learners. And because you're able to set an example by doing that yourself in the classroom, they would always look up to you that, Meghna, please teach us more. And that's how they would want to stay with you and grow with you. Then you also mentioned about AI and technology, and how technology would any given day have more factual knowledge than any of us could actually accumulate and have direct conscious access to in our minds, right? So as a teacher, we need to have something which is at least one level higher than our students always, so that students can look up to us for something. And imagine what you were saying. If a teacher can actually walk into the classroom and say, you know what, you 30, 40, 50 students in the class, I can bet that I will always have more curiosity than any one of you can have. And I am above you in having curiosity. And that's why I am the right person in the classroom to work with and to learn from. No technology can do that.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Yeah, imagine if we could actually empower our teachers and tell them, can you go and confidently stand in any class and say, I am the most curious person in this class, and then drive the class from there? I'm not saying I'm the most intelligent. I'm saying I'm the most curious.
Very true. Yeah, that's something which drives the class, and that's something where you're bringing that. I mean, evoking that curiosity in children, also especially in the high school. Naturally, the younger ones are very curious, but when you see these children growing up, somehow those levels come down because of a lot of distractions around them. Yeah, and whenever the teacher is curious, it automatically sets the mood of the class.
Absolutely. So here is a very important question. How do you evaluate curiosity in an interview with a teacher when they come to you to get hired?
Right.
What do you do that you're able to identify whether this person is curious enough? Does the person meet the threshold limit of curiosity to become a member of Fountainhead Global Schools?
Okay, so whenever we have an interaction, see, usually every teacher comes with her own experience and all, and I really appreciate that, and I have a lot of respect for that. So when they deliver, we have during the interview, there are different steps and processes that a teacher has to go through. One of it is how do you share a story? Like I want them to create a story of whatever they're teaching and explain it to someone who has no idea about that particular topic or a subject. So how do they tune it down just to make sure that someone who's not from that particular line is listening to them? So and I give them enough time, like you can, if you can't do it right away, you can come back tomorrow and do it and all of that. So trust me, when that time was given, every time those teachers surprised me. The first session where they're like doing a demo session is so different to the time which is like given to them, and what is expected, like it is very clearly mentioned, like and then expecting that demo on another day most of the time. So this will help me understand, like is this teacher curious enough to be able to bring that curiosity to the classroom with them or not?
Yeah. So just to kind of paraphrase and share that on what I understood. Yes. So you're saying that you usually ask this teacher in a demo to share whatever the teacher has to teach in form of a story. And if the teacher can share it in a way that all the students are hooked onto the story, they want to learn and they are curious about what's going to happen next. So if the teacher can really bring out curiosity in the learners while doing the demo, it's a good teacher and can be considered for the role at Fountainhead. But if somebody is not able to do that, might not be the right person for the organization.
I do not say that they are not the right person. I would want to create an environment where they would like to join us to be able to, do that. So, because see, why I think like, it's time that, we say save teachers than save tigers. Tigers are already saved. I think it's the time that, teachers need to be saved. So I really want teachers to be, also to have that kind of an environment where they can learn. But, they should express that, they are interested in learning these things, because, that is more important. But if the teacher is rigid and doesn't like changes, I can't do anything. But the teacher is passionate, or, they're flexible in learning new ways and new methodologies and all of that, we wanted to provide that kind of platform and say, like, you're welcome on board. And this is the timeline, like, you can shadow the other teachers who are doing this, or you want any extra help, or you want certain amount of, hand holding to be done, we will be there to help you out. So because that will give confidence in teachers to be able to say that, I can be a better teacher, than thinking, oh, I am not a good teacher, so they did not take me.
Very good. Very good. So which brings me to the other side of the story. What is it that Fountainhead Global Schools does not want to hire at all? So let's say if you're in a interview and something happens, what are those 3 red flags that you look for? That, okay, red flag, if somebody has any of these 2-3 red flags, they are not meant for Fountainhead Global Schools. I know one thing that you mentioned was somebody who's very rigid, not ready to learn. I understand. Yeah. But give me some more. What are those red flags?
And responsibility, like, how one takes up that responsibility on whatever happens. Because, as human beings, sometimes unknowingly, we might not do the right thing necessary during a given time, unknowingly. But when you take up the responsibility that, okay, I did not know about it then, but it's okay now that I know, I'm not going to repeat it. So that is something that I would look at. So I would ask certain questions like, who takes that responsibility at home, or like, what was the task in your previous school which was very tough for you, and how did you resolve it? So as a teacher, because children come to the teacher not just for learning a particular subject, they also come with their emotions, they also come with their thoughts. The teacher should be able to appreciate that and not disturb the rest of the class. So their skills, how do you manage these things, in like, and do they have that bandwidth of like, the SEL, I call it, the social emotional learning part of it, where they will be able to handle certain questions from certain age groups of the children. So I give them real-time scenarios, and I tell them, what would you do? What would you suggest if something like this happens in your class? So because certain teachers come with a very strong background of like judging, that is a red flag for me. I mean, as a teacher, you need to be open-minded. You need to understand. Maybe you haven't faced something like this in your, growing up years, or in your experience or an exposure, but doesn't mean that the child is not going through one. You can always reach out to other people to be able to help the student out, no matter whatever the situation is. So I look for curious people. I look for high social-emotional intelligence teachers. I look for teachers who take responsibility of whatever happens around them. Good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, if they take up the responsibility, then the child knows world is not perfect, things will happen, but how do you turn around and learn, what's the best thing to do when certain things happen? Because this is something where I feel is necessary for a growing student to understand that, world is not perfect. Yeah. Things will go wrong. But, how do we cope up when certain things go wrong? Because that is something which is very, very important, as an, important quality in an adult for them to face the future.
Amazing. Oh, I love it. And I think most of the teachers who would have those qualities would more often than not be able to create outstanding classrooms, and hence the growth that the parents want you to keep continuing increasing the classes, and they all want to come back again and again because they find that environment. Now, what that also means is a lot of parent trust lies in Meghna as a person, Fountainhead Global Schools as an institution, and then the teachers individually. And, as a very famous person said, with more power comes more responsibility, right? So Spider-Man said that, right? Yeah. So Spider-Man said, with more power comes more responsibility, which means there's a lot of more responsibility on teachers and on you as a person. And with the changing time, the challenges, the problems that we face are very different on an everyday basis. So if you had to tell to the teachers globally, teachers around the world, next generations of teachers, what are the major challenges and problems that you see teachers facing today, which you think you would have already resolved, which you think you guys are still working on, or you feel would come in the future? What are those top problems that you think teachers and educators face, and how to resolve them?
So I see, as an educator, a lot of parents, their trust factor is the first thing that, as you rightly mentioned, like, other than that as well, like, they're very quick on judging the teacher. This is the major problem that the teacher faces these days, because, as human beings, we don't want to be judged by anyone. So, for whatever reasons, like, both the parents working in an environment where they have less amount of time to spend with their child. So they expect the teacher to be able to, do their part of it as well. Yeah. This is where I tell the teachers, hold your ground. you as a teacher can put in a 50%, because we always say, like, how do you share that, the responsibilities of bringing up a child is, as a teacher you take 50% of it, and as a parent you take 50% of the responsibility of bringing this beautiful plant called child to make it into a beautiful tree. So I tell the teachers, like, if the way the parents are questioning what have you done, how you update your things on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis in the form of newsletters or in the form of an email where you are informing the parent this is what is being done at the school, you also give resources to the parent where, what they can do best. Because, sometimes not every parent is
savvy to
qualified, child psychologist to raise their children. So give that inputs as a teacher. How do you expect a parent at home will be able to help the child out? Then ask how they are able to do that, and and how it benefited. And so always include parents also as part of your community, not just your class students, but also include the parents, and try and keep it more professional. Because I've seen at times a lot of people, they just so get carried away, they just erase those lines of being personal and professional and somehow get tangled up. So I tell them, learn to be more professional and try avoid certain things so that you also can stay sane. So all the teachers, I would strongly believe, when we can't solve everything, what I do is I give a task. I mean, usually I see this a lot in children who are in their 8-9-year-old, when they want attention. So they come up saying that, they're picky. So they wanted to complain about their classmate or someone. And we somehow see this trend mostly in the parents also.
Yeah.
Very picky when it comes to school. So I tell the teachers, how do you turn this around the situation? So there is something called 5:1 rule that we have in school. Okay. So if the child wanted to complain one thing, so they have to be able to observe the same person so well that they should be able to tell 5 good things about the same person. Then they'll get a chance to complain once.
Beautiful.
So this is many a times I've seen my students, when they say okay, whenever they wanted to share something, I'm always listening. I would never say that, I don't want to give them that impression that I'm not listening, but it has to be valid enough. So how do you evaluate that is valid enough? It's okay, you observe this person very well. It is not always the negative things which are, attracting you, or you also have good things to tell about this person. And this is genuine concern that you have, that, that this person, you face from this person, fair enough. But at times, just to, gain attention, you're only just choosing and picking on those small things. So by the time they tell the 3 good things, they themselves have this realization saying that it's not a very big thing that I really wanted to complain about. It's okay. And then this is something that they can resolve on their own, right? So that is the confidence that we are building in children. And I tell the same thing to the teachers. Whenever you meet a parent, you also, show your 5 fingers before they complain once, so that they understand the amount of efforts that the teacher is putting in, so to help their child out. So is that one thing also has to be on the teacher, or is that one thing which can be resolved on its own, is something that you can decide during the parent-teacher meeting. And this actually went on to the next level, whereas even parents started doing it amongst their couples. If they have something. So this is
so less spouse-related problems in families of the kids who go to Fountainhead Global Schools then.
Yeah. And also, if the child is also if the parent is complaining saying that, oh, you haven't done this thing that I've told you. So child is also using similar thing. Okay, can you tell 5 good things that I have done that you are happy with? So that if you have this one complaint, I'll change myself so that, it adds to my plus points than to my negative points.
Amazing. No, this is amazing. And I think one of the best things that I love about this entire thing is that you're trying to do it very professionally. Right. I had this one discussion a couple of weeks ago. Somebody, a principal, one of the school principals, was commenting on a public forum that teachers these days are not good enough because they don't act like mothers, how teachers at our time used to do. And I said, well, you don't want them to act like mothers. We want them to act like teachers. And being a teacher today is completely different than what it was being a teacher 20 years ago. And it is about accepting it as a formal, real profession, which has its own key responsibility areas. And the moment you said that you ask your teachers to stay as professional as possible and professionally then deal with things by using principles like 5:1 and other things, that just warms up my heart so much. That we are looking at teachers as professionals, not as somebody who's come to just do a job and to kind of not let the confidence or the professionalism come in. We keep telling them, oh, it's a noble job. Oh, you are like a mother. No, it is a job, and it is a professional job, and we have to look at it as a professional job, and then now we have to grow it as a profession, right? And I love it. I just love the way you said it. And on that note, I think this makes you qualified to be able to pitch the profession of teaching to the next generations. This is one of my favorite parts of the podcast, where I ask education leaders to stand at a place. So you have to imagine you're standing in front of, say, 10,000 people, graduates, ready to join the workforce, and they have to decide whether they should go into teaching or not. And they are 50% convinced about going into teaching, 50% convinced not going. You as an education leader who realizes that there's a strong need of high quality skilled people to come into teaching, needs to pitch teaching as a profession to these 10,000 people, and pitch it in a way that many of them or most of them want to join the teaching profession, whether at Fountainhead schools or any other school around the world. But they should think that teaching is the profession to be in, and I want to spend the rest of my life as a teacher, professionally growing, moving to different parts of the world, doing something.
Right.
But you have to pitch teaching as a profession. So you have to not, talk to me. You are now talking to the future generation, 10,000 people. Imagine yourself standing in the center of a big stadium. Everybody's looking at you, and it's your responsibility to pitch the teaching profession to them.
That's the toughest thing, Rishabh, that you have given. But, I am actually, I consider myself more a doer than a person with words. So I might just give my example, how, I started my journey. I come from a small village, actually, growing up in India, I come from a village background where there are a lot of restrictions while growing up, and and a very ambitious family where everybody in the family are either doctors or engineers. So I think I'm the only one who chose to be a teacher. And initially it was difficult for me to convince why I chose teaching, because I think this is a place where a lot of people are stuck because they are not able to convince their friends and family why teaching is something that they really wanted to get into. So if only we can share the benefits of being a teacher, I think that will actually help a lot of students, because it so happened I was a speaker at a few of these forums where I was addressing about 5,000, 6,000 students, graduates, but technically sound graduates, and I was assessing a lot of their ideas as well. So I always tell them no matter what you do in life, always keep that space where you can actually help whatever you learn to pass on to the next generation, and that happens only through teaching. So no matter whichever profession that you are in, unlike in India, in any other country, no matter whatever profession you are in, people actually take out time to go and work in a school or work in an educational institution where they can share their learnings with the next generations. So I tell them you don't have to be a teacher per se, but then make sure that you keep certain time for sharing your knowledge with the others and your experiences with the others. See, these days knowledge, you will find it on Google as well, but experiences, only as human beings we can pass it on to our next generations.
Yeah.
So I tell them, like, how being that village, the child from a village with aspirations in life, and choosing teaching as an aspiration, being recognized as one of the world's best teacher, that journey itself is so inspiring for myself, right? So I tell them, like, sky is the limit. In teaching also, you don't have to say, I remained a kindergarten teacher my rest of my life, but imagine the number of lives that you would be changing. See, no matter wherever we work, wherever we go, we still remember our teachers who inspired us in our life. After our parents, these are the people who we contribute some of our, success to, right? So why can't we be that person who wanted to be, who wanted to get all those blessings from the next generations? So this is what I share with a lot of people, like, teaching is a profession where you can be as creative as you want to be, and you can be as innovative you want to be, and inspire at the same time the next generation. So I feel, everyone should be, able to allocate that kind of a time where, like, because, while sharing, we learn a lot.
Absolutely.
As a teacher, while sharing, even I learn a lot. So if I have to give a message to 10,000 people, I tell them, like, how when I came to India, like, when I started the school, I was a young mother. I had my own challenges. And I know my other teachers, my colleagues also have similar challenges, them being young mothers. So how do I handle this? So I brought in technology into my school. I used all kind of, platforms, especially the Google platform, to do our, day-to-day activities on Google after we, looked into whatever is needed at home. So I created that flexibility for teachers to be able to work at their own pace outside school hours, sometimes, things like that. And that is so new when I started off, like, working, trying to give my inputs for Google for Education in 2012 was a very inspiring journey of mine, where I was helping other 10,000 women to come online with Google. Like, me being a non-programmer, trying to run and make people's life easier, how to set examples, and moving on, how I used practical, how I created, practical environments for children to learn. Like, and one of the biggest projects that we have done recently was reviving an entire lake. Children revived the entire lake and put their learning to use. And they are known as, like, the entire Hyderabad, or, like, maybe other parts also recognizes them, like, these children know how to revive lakes, like, in real time. So these are certain things that, I tell them, like, anything today is about solving problems. So how do you solve problems is, you're creating these venues for the next generation to be able to do so. And that doesn't always only happen in a startup company or in a tech firm or in an R&D. It can happen in schools too. So this is my journey where I'm helping. And we've hosted something called Bringing India Together, where we exchange our history, our culture, our culinary, our current affairs, and things that inspire us, our festivals and all, with the students of other state, and vice versa, because this will help in creating that kind of leverage when you're working in teams. Like, how do you respect other customs and cultures, and how do you appreciate people coming from these different backgrounds, and your life is so enriched with all this kind of information. And I think teacher job is one thing which will never be boring, even though you're working in that for next 30 years. I've seen people in the IT who say that I'm tired, I wanted a break, and I'm looking for a shift. I've seen people who've been in medical line also saying that this is so strenuous and I wanted to shift. I think teaching is one line that it is innovative every day. It is interesting. It is creating a lot of experiences and so many aha moments, by the end of the day. And also exposure to the world. And what else do you want from a career? You wanted exposure, you wanted innovation, you want something going on every day. And the best thing is, like, teachers don't age. We are ageless.
Oh wow, this completes the pitch. Like this is the final thing. You get everything that you want and you stay young. Do you want to do that? Come join the profession. What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Amazing. Meghna, that's I think that's one of the best pitches that I've heard. If I was that young child, that graduate sitting there deciding should I become a teacher or not, I don't think after this they can think about any other profession. So wonderfully done. Well, we're going to be taking this snippet and of course sharing it in different social media, different places as well. But then I think that was a very good pitch for the next generation of teachers, and amazing. With this, I think we have to bring a close to today's episode. It was really fun talking to you, Meghna. Any message you'd like to give to our listeners who are teachers from different parts of the world, and then we close this podcast.
So I'm sure you're all rich with your experiences and all of that. So teaching is one line which will give you that opportunity to share those rich experiences with so many more. Because I've seen a lot of people starting at that 0 on the scale and then moved up to a 5. So let us help the next generation start at 5 and move up. So it becomes easier for the next generations to be able to make this beautiful world more wonderful and beautiful.
Superb. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast, everybody. We sign off today together, and I'll be eagerly waiting for all of you in the next episode. Till then, see you. Bye-bye.